Pagod ka na bang magsulat ng contact tracing form sa bawat pinupuntahan mo? Natatakot ka bang mahawa dahil sa panulat na ginamit mo? Nangangamba ka ba para sa iyong data privacy? Higit sa lahat, may saysay nga ba ang mga pinagsusulat mo? Upang bawasan ang ating alalahanin sa tuwing magtutungo sa mga establishmento ngayong meron pa ring COVID-19 pandemic, ay ginawa nating mas madali ngunit mas maikling ang ating contact tracing sa Venezuela City. Narito na ang Venezuela Contact Tracing App o ang ValTrace. Sa pamamagitan ng ValTrace App, hindi na kailangan pang magsulat sa contact tracing form sa bawat pupuntahang establishmento. Kailangan lang ipakita at i-scan ang inyong unique QR code. Ang record ng inyong mga napuntahan ay direktang maitatala sa database ng ating Mega Contact Tracing Center na magiging malaking tulong para sa mas masinsinang contact tracing. Paano ba gamitin ang ValTrace app? Step 1. Mag-log on lang sa valtrace.upcase.net. Step 2. Sagutan ang online form at i-click ang Submit. Step 3. I-generate ang inyong QR code at i-save sa mobile phone. Maaari din itong i-print. Narito ang ilang paalalang dapat tandaan. Simula September 12, 2020 ay pwede nang i-download ang inyong QR code. Sa October 5, 2020 naman ay sisimulan ng hingin at i-scan ang inyong QR code sa bawat enclosed indoor establishment sa Venezuela City, tulad ng mga mall, restaurant, grocery store, bangko, simbahan, palengke at iba pa. No QR code, no entry. Kaya mag-download na upang hindi maabala. Ang serbisyong ito ay libre at pwedeng gamitin taga Venezuela ka man o hindi. Bawat isang QR code ay para lang sa isang tao, kaya dapat ay may sariling code ang bawat individual na papasok ng establishmento. Kailangan pa rin palaging dalhin ang quarantine pass sa tuwing lalabas ng tahanan. Ang QR code ay kakailanganin lamang tuwing papasok ng establishmento.
Welcome to our Mathematics 9 virtual classroom. In this session, I want you to remember my name, Sir Jude, and join me as we joyfully venture the world of numbers, the first topic in grade 9 mathematics. Understand the mathematical concepts that will be presented for today with an open heart and an open mind. Determine the solutions to mathematical problems that will require not only our decision-making skills, but also our problem-solving skills. And of course, to enjoy the good vibes of learning mathematics at home and while we are in the middle of this pandemic. So the topic that we are going to discuss for today is all about quadratic equation and its solution. This is based on the most essential learning competencies that was given by the Department of Education. So what do we expect from you as we finish discussing the topic for today? Let us now have our objectives. So at the end of the session, you should be able to, number one, define quadratic equation. The second one, classify quadratic equation from not. The third one, write quadratic equation in its standard form. The fourth one, solve quadratic equation using the first two methods, extracting square roots and factoring. And of course, the last one, you should be able to show accuracy and speed in solving quadratic equations. Just a reminder, we will be utilizing the react buttons found in the comment section tab and the comment box. If you know the answer or you have a question, feel free to drop them in the comment section. There are teacher moderators that will see and filter your comments. Please also prepare your pen and paper for taking down notes purposes. Let me take you to a place where it is known for its disciplined citizens. A place known as the Gateway of the North and the vibrant city. Where is this place? Do you have an idea? Correct! The place that we are referring to is the Venezuela city. Have you been to all places in Venezuela? How many barangays, landmarks, and parks have you visited? Let us test your familiarity in our very own Venezuela city. Let us have activity number 1 entitled Where in Venezuela? I will be showing you pictures and you will be telling me where can we find these places in Venezuela. Let us have picture number 1. Where can we find this place? It is built beside the Venezuela City Government Center and the Venezuela Town Center. It is notable because of the arc-shaped ceiling. This is also built to house significant gatherings in Venezuela. Are you familiar with the place? Where is this place? Correct! This is the Venezuela Amphitheater that can be found in Venezuela People's Park. How about the second picture? Where can you find this place? This structure is said to be over 400 years old and is a cultural and a religious relic of the past Spanish era. The tower, along with the entrance arch, is the only remaining structure of the original church built in 1632. Where is this place? Very good. This is the San Diego de Alcala Bell Tower found in Polo, Venezuela City. How about this modern style structure? The Mediterranean-inspired hall is one of Senator Wynn's pet projects and features pristine white walls and stone arches, high ceilings, and lush greens. This serves as the canteen for City Hall's many employees, as well as a relaxed environment for meetings and social gathering. Where is this place? Amazing! The Venezuela City Social Hall found within the vicinity of Venezuela New City Hall. This is now the last picture. Is this place familiar to you? It was built by the Americans in 1910 and served as the boundary between Rizal and Bulacan province. Before the existence of MacArthur Highway and NLEX, Venezuela was already considered as the gateway of the North. Where is this place? Very good. This is the Arcong Bato or the Stone Park, found along MH del Pilar, Arcong Bato, Venezuela City. So how many places did you get right? These are only some of the few historical landmarks found in Venezuela City. But what is common with the pictures presented? Take a closer look in each of the structures. Very good. The structures have U-shaped figures described by those arches. These U-shaped figure or arches are also known as parabola. A parabola describes the graph of a quadratic equation in two variables, which is also known as our quadratic function. But before we go to this quadratic function, it is important to know the main concepts of quadratic equations and how to solve them. Let us now go to our next activity entitled, Where is my pair? So the main goal of this activity is to match the equations in the first column to its equivalent equation found in the second column. Let us have item number 1 given by 3x times x minus 2 is equal to 0. What is its equivalent equation in column 2? If your answer is C, you are correct. If we are going to apply distributive property, we will now be producing 3x squared minus 6x is equal to 0. How about on the second example, the square of the binomial x plus 3 is equal to 0. What is its equivalent equation in column number 2? If your answer is B, you are correct. If we are going to apply the square of a binomial technique, the square of the binomial x plus 3 is equal to 0 will now be equivalent to x squared plus 6x plus 9 is equal to 0. How about the last equation, given by x minus 3 times x plus 2 is equal to 0? Obviously, it should be paired to letter A. If we are going to apply the FOIL method, we will now obtain x squared minus x minus 6 is equal to 0. You are doing great. I want you to focus on the equations that can be found in the second column. Take a look at the equations. What is the degree of the following equation? Remember that when we are talking about degree, it refers to the highest exponent of a given polynomial or equation. Correct. The degree is 2. These are now examples of quadratic equations. But how are we going to define quadratic equation? And how does it differ from a linear equation? Let us find out. A quadratic equation is a mathematical statement with a polynomial of degree 2, meaning that the highest exponent must be 2. And it can be written in the form ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0, where a, b, and c are real numbers and a should not be equal to 0. Now, why is it that a should not be equal to 0? If we are going to let a be equal to 0, we will be producing a new equation, 0x squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. If you can see, this part of the equation can still be simplified. So 0 times x squared is 0 plus bx plus c is equal to 0. If we are going to simplify this equation further, the final equation will be bx plus c is equal to 0, which is no longer considered as a quadratic equation, but rather we will call it as a linear equation. Let us now go to the standard form of quadratic equation. The standard form is given by ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. The first term ax squared is what do we call as our quadratic term. And in the quadratic term, we can find the value of a. It is the numerical coefficient of the quadratic term. Next, the second term bx is what do we call as our linear term. In the linear term, we can find the value of b. It is the numerical coefficient of our linear term. Next, the last term c is what do we call as our constant term. It is important to consider the order of the exponents. It should be arranged in descending order, meaning from the highest exponent down to the lowest exponent. and the other side of the equation must be equal to 0. Let us now proceed with activity number 3. We need to determine if the given equation is quadratic equation. Now, if it is a quadratic equation, we need to rewrite it in its standard form. So if the equation is quadratic equation, kindly press the heart react button. If it is not a quadratic equation, please press the like react button. You may also post your answers in the comment section and let your teacher, moderators, and other students see how participative you are. Remember that for a mathematical statement to be called as a quadratic equation, it should have a degree of 2 and an equal sign. Standard form, on the other hand, if the equation is arranged in quadratic term, linear term, and constant term manner or order. And the other side must be equal to 0. So let us start. Let us have the first equation given by x plus 2x plus 5 is equal to 0. Again, the equation is 2x plus 5 is equal to 0. Is it a quadratic equation or not? Is it a heart or like react? If you answer no, you are correct. So this is not a quadratic equation since the degree of this equation is equal to 1. But we can call it as a linear equation. Let us proceed with item number 2. We are given with 3x squared minus 27 is equal to 0. Is it a quadratic equation or not? Is it a heart or like react? Very good. This is a quadratic equation because it has an equal sign and the degree of this equation is 2. Now, is the equation written in its standard form? Correct. So this is already written in its standard form. The quadratic term in the given equation is 3x squared that has an a value equal to 3. How about our linear term? Sir, there is no linear term. You are correct. So therefore, the value of b is equal to 0. How about our constant term? Very good. It is given by negative 27, which is also the value of our c. Let us proceed with the third example. Given this equation, is it a quadratic equation or not? If you can see, the equation is not yet in its simplest form. So it is important that we simplify first equations before deciding whether it is a quadratic equation or not. So to simplify this equation, we need your distributive property. So m multiplied by m, we have m squared. Next, m multiplied by negative 6, we have the product of negative 6m is equal to 8m minus 5m squared. If you can see in this equation, we can combine m squared and negative 5m squared. On the other hand, we can also combine negative 6m and 8m. So to combine them, let us transfer the terms 8m minus 5m squared to the other side of the equation. So to do that, we need your addition property. Let us add the additive inverse of the expression 8m minus 5m squared, which is 5m squared minus 8m. Let us simplify m squared plus 5m squared. The answer is correct. We have 6m squared. How about negative 6m plus negative 8m? Very good. The answer is negative 14m is equal to 0. Then we decide, is this equation quadratic equation or not? Is it a heart or a like react? Very good. So this is a quadratic equation. And if you can see, this equation is already written in its standard form. So what is the quadratic term in this given equation? Very good. We have 6m squared. Therefore, the value of a is equal to 6. How about our linear term? Very good. We have there negative 14m. Therefore, the value of b is equal to negative 14. How about our constant term? Sir, there is no constant term. You are correct. Therefore, the value of c is equal to 0. Very good. Next, let us proceed with the fourth example. Given by x to the fourth minus 3x minus 5 is equal to 0. Is this a quadratic equation or not? Is it a heart or a like react? So this is not a quadratic equation since the degree of this equation is equal to 4. Let us now go to the last example, given by x squared plus 4x equals negative 3. Is this a quadratic equation or not? Will you give it a heart react or a like react? If you drop a heart, you are awesome. It is a quadratic equation since the degree of this equation is 2. And if you can see, this is not yet in its simplest form. We need to transfer negative 3 to the other side of the equation. So to do that, we need your addition property. By adding positive 3 to both sides of the equation, and if we are going to simplify, that will be negative 3 plus 3, we have it 0. Therefore, the standard form of this equation will be x squared plus 4x plus 3 is equal to 0. But what is the quadratic term? Very good. It is x squared. Therefore, the value of a is equal to 1. How about our linear term? Very good. It is 4x. Therefore, the value of b is equal to 4. And then the last one is the constant term. What is the constant term in this equation? Awesome. That is 3, which is also the value of our c. So out of the 5 mathematical statements, we had identified 3 equations that are considered as quadratic. Since they are quadratic equation, the next question is, how are we going to solve these quadratic equations? So we should take note that when we are solving any equations, we are to find the value of the unknown variable that will satisfy the given equation. So there are 4 methods in solving quadratic equations. The first one is by the use of extracting square roots. The second one is by the use of factoring. The third one is the use of completing the square. And then the last one is by the use of quadratic formula. So for today, we will only be discussing the first 2 methods of solving quadratic equations, namely extracting square roots and factoring. So I want you to consider this first equation that we had identified to be a quadratic equation. 3x squared minus 27 is equal to 0. If you are going to observe, the linear term here is missing. So in a quadratic equation, if the linear term is missing, it is easiest and most convenient to use extracting square roots. In extracting square roots, we will be using square root property. In the square root property, it states that if x squared is equal to k, then x is equal to the positive negative square root of k, or whatever the square root of k is. But we should take note that the root should come with a positive and a negative sign. And also, k must be a non-negative number, meaning that the value of k should be greater than or equal to 0. So let us solve 3x squared minus 27 is equal to 0 using extracting square roots. So to do that, the first step is to isolate the constant. The constant here is negative 27. Negative 27 should go on the other side of the equation. So to isolate the constant, we will be using your addition property. We need to add 27 to both sides of the equation. And if we are going to simplify, negative 27 plus 27 is equal to 0. And 0 plus 27 is equal to 27. Producing an equation, 3x squared is equal to 27. Then, we should make sure that the value of a is equal to 1. But in this case, the value of a is 3. So to eliminate 3, we will be dividing both sides of the equation by 3. 3x squared divided by 3 is x squared. 27 divided by 3 is 9. We have x squared is equal to 9. Then, we will be applying the square root property by extracting the square roots of both sides of the equation. The square root of x squared is x is equal to the positive negative square root of 9. But what is the square root of 9? We should think of a number multiplied by itself. The result is 9. Therefore, x is equal to positive negative 3. Therefore, the solutions of this equation are negative 3 and 3. Let us now go to our next presentation. This shows the checking of the solutions. Both negative 3 and 3 must satisfy the given quadratic equation upon substitution. Take a look at this one. Since 3 and negative 3 both satisfy 3x squared minus 27 is equal to 0, hence, we can say that they are really the solutions of the quadratic equation 3x squared minus 27 is equal to 0. We will now go with the next example, given by x squared plus 7 is equal to negative 2. First step, we need to isolate the constant. Positive 7 must go on the other side of the equation. So to do that, we will be adding negative 7 to both sides of the equation. Then, we simplify. 7 plus negative 7 is equal to 0. Negative 2 plus negative 7 is equal to negative 9. Making the new equation, x squared is equal to negative 9. We should make sure that the value of a is equal to 1. But in this case, the value of a is already 1. Then we proceed with extracting square roots. Using the square root property, we will now be having square root of x squared is equal to the positive negative square root of negative 9. The square root of x squared is x. But how about the square root of negative 9? Can you think of a number multiplied by itself, the result is negative 9? Correct. Since there are no numbers that will satisfy the given condition, therefore the result is no real solution. If you can remember, in the square root property, the value of a must be greater than or equal to 0. The last example is given by 3x squared minus 24 is equal to 0. First step, we need to isolate negative 24, which is considered as the constant. Negative 24 should go on the other side of the equation. So to do that, we will be applying your addition property of equality. So by adding 24 to both sides of the equation and simplifying, negative 24 plus 24 is 0. 0 plus 24 is 24. Making a new equation, 3x squared is equal to 24. Then, the value of a must be equal to 1. but in this case, the value of a is equal to 3. So we need to divide both sides of the equation by 3. 3x squared divided by 3 is x squared. 24 divided by 3 will now be equal to 8. Then we apply the square root property. Upon extracting the square roots of both sides of the equation, we will now obtain square root of x squared is equal to the positive negative square root of 8. But if you can see, 8 is not a perfect square. So how are we going to simplify square root of 8? We all know that square root of x squared is equal to x. But how about square root of 8? So we should think of factors of 8 in such a way that one of the factors must be a perfect square. So what are the factors? Very good. So we have x is equal to the positive negative square root of 4 times 2. Then we separately get the roots of 4 and 2. So what is the square root of 4? The square root of 4 is 2. And if you can see square root of 2, the 2 inside the radical symbol or the square root symbol is not a perfect square. So therefore, the value of x will be x is equal to positive negative 2 square root of 2. Therefore, the solutions of this equation is now positive negative 2 square root of 2, or we can actually separate the 2. Negative 2 square root of 2 and 2 square root of 2. I want you to focus on this equation. This is actually the second equation that we had identified to be a quadratic equation. If you can see, we cannot use extracting square roots here since the linear term is present. But we can use factoring in solving this one. So if in square root property, we use it in extracting square roots, in factoring, we will be using the zero product property. The zero product property states that if there are two factors and it has a product of 0, then one of the factors or both of the factors must be 0. So for us to further understand how this property works, let us solve the given quadratic equation. So in solving quadratic equation by the use of factoring, we should make sure that the equation is already written in its standard form. But in this case, this equation is already written in standard form. So therefore, we now go with the factored form of this equation. What is the factored form of 6m squared minus 14m is equal to 0? If you can see, 6 and 14 has a greatest common factor of 2. Very good. How about m squared and m? What is the greatest common factor? Very good. That is m, making our greatest common monomial factor equal to 2m. If we are going to factor out the GCMF to the original equation, that will be 2m times an expression is equal to 0. So to determine the expression inside the parentheses, we will be dividing each terms in the original equation by the GCMF. So that will be 6m squared divided by 2m. That will give us 3m. So 3m now is the first term in the given expression inside the parentheses. Let us now go with negative 14m divided by 2m is now equal to negative 7. So negative 7 is now the second term of the expression inside the parentheses. This equation now is already in factored form. Since this is already in factored form, we will be using your zero product property. If two factors has a product of 0, then one of them or both of them must be 0. So the first factor, which is 2m, equated to 0, that will be 2m is equal to 0. The next factor, 3m minus 7, equated to 0, that will be 3m minus 7 is equal to 0. Let us first consider 2m is equal to 0. We only need the value of m, but we are given here with 2m. So to get the value of m, we will be dividing both sides of the equation by 2. So 2m divided by 2 is equal to m, and 0 divided by 2 is equal to 0, making m equal 0 as one of our solutions. Let us now proceed with the second equation. So 3m minus 7 is equal to 0. By applying our addition property, it will now result to 3m is equal to 7. Then, again, we only need the value of m. But in this case, we are given with 3m. So how are we going to get the value of m? Divide both sides of the equation by 3. So 3m divided by 3, that is m. And 7 divided by 3, that will be 7/3, making m equals 7/3 as one of our solutions. So therefore, the solutions of this equation is given by 0 and 7/3. Let us now go to the third equation that we had identified to be a quadratic equation, given by x squared plus 4x plus 3 is equal to 0. We cannot use here GCMF as a way of factoring, but we can use factoring general trinomial. So how are we going to solve quadratic equations by using factoring general trinomial? First step, factor out x squared. What are the factors of x squared? That will be x and x. Next, we should think of factors of 3. Two numbers multiplied together, the result is 3. At the same time, if we are going to add those numbers, the sum must be a positive 4. What are the numbers? If you answered 3 and 1, you are correct. So to check, 3 times 1, that will give us positive 3. At the same time, 3 plus 1 is equal to positive 4. So therefore, the factored form of x squared plus 4x plus 3 equals 0 is now x plus 3 times x plus 1 is equal to 0. Since the equation is already in its factored form, we need to apply the zero product property. The first factor, x plus 3, equated to 0, that will result to x plus 3 is equal to 0. And then the other factor, x plus 1, equated to 0, that will become x plus 1 is equal to 0. Let us consider the first equation, x plus 3 is equal to 0. If we are going to apply addition property, what will be the value of x? Very good. X is equal to negative 3. How about on the second equation? X plus 1 is equal to 0. Same process, if we are going to apply addition property, what will be the value of x? Very good. So x is equal to negative 1. Therefore, the solutions of this equation are negative 3 and negative 1. We are now down to the last example, given by x squared minus 10x plus 21 is equal to 0. Let us apply factoring general trinomial. First step, factor out x squared. That will be x and x. Then, we think of factors of positive 21. Two numbers multiplied together, the result is positive 21. At the same time, if we are going to add those numbers, the result must be a negative 10. What are the numbers? Very good. The numbers are negative 7 and negative 3. So to check, negative 7 times negative 3 will give us positive 21. At the same time, negative 7 plus negative 3 is equal to negative 10. Therefore, the factored form of x squared minus 10x plus 21 equals 0 is now x minus 7 times x minus 3 is equal to 0. Then we apply the zero product property. The first factor, x minus 7, equated to 0, that will be x minus 7 equals 0. Then, the second factor, x minus 3, equated to 0, that will be x minus 3 is equal to 0. The first equation given by x minus 7 equals 0, if we are going to apply addition property, what will be the value of x? Very good. X is equal to 7. Let us now go to the second equation. X minus 3 is equal to 0. What is the second solution? Very good. X is equal to 3. So therefore, the solutions of this equation are 3 and 7. So you are doing great. I hope that you can still recall the concepts that you had during your previous level and connect it to our lesson for today. So we are through with the first two methods, namely extracting square roots and factoring as a way of solving quadratic equations. The other two remaining will be discussed the next meeting. Let us now sum up today's discussion. Let us give it off to one of our live viewers, Peter. Peter?
Summarize the lesson, a quadratic equation is a mathematical statement with a polynomial of degree 2 that can be written in the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, where a, b, and c are real and a is not equal to 0. At marami tayong iba't ibang paraan kung paano mag-solve ng quadratic equations, but mainly, we use 4. Una ay ang solving by extracting square roots, factoring, completing the square, and lastly, by using the quadratic formula.
Thank you very much, Anak. It is also important to note that in solving quadratic equation using extracting square roots, it is easiest to use and most convenient if the linear term is missing. While solving quadratic equation by factoring is easiest to use if the equation is factorable. I will leave you with this. Think of this one. How are you going to solve the quadratic equation given by x squared minus 2x minus 2 is equal to 0? If you can see, the equation is not factorable. At the same time, we cannot use extracting square roots. So how are we going to solve this? So this will be answered the next meeting. And I want you to go over with your self-learning modules and try to answer try these found in the Flex Your Brain section of your module for us to tell that you really learned for today's discussion. You may also visit the DepEd Commons at commons.deped.gov.ph for more. So at this moment, we will be answering some questions given by our grade 9 students. We will now proceed with the question and answer. So there is a question coming from Citero Francisco Memorial National High School. So the question is, how to write the solution set of the given quadratic equation. So the solution set is a set of numbers, or is the set of numbers which are enclosed by curly braces. So the numbers that we are going to include inside the curly braces are the solutions. So it is written starting with the smaller value or the smaller solution followed by a comma, then the larger value or the larger solution. So another question from Polo National High School. Can we also use factoring instead of extracting square root? So some of the questions, or equations rather, especially if the equations can be factored using difference of two squares, can be solved using factoring. And we can still arrive with the same answer if we are going to apply extracting square roots. So if there will be more questions or point of clarification, you may ask your respective subject teachers during your classroom discussion for tomorrow. I hope that you've learned something for today. And this is Sir Jude saying that in this pandemic, learning should never stop. And always remember, we should always be consistent to joyfully venture the world of numbers. Understand the mathematical concepts with an open heart and open mind. Determine solutions to mathematical problems that will require our decision-making and problem-solving skills. And of course, most especially, we should enjoy the good vibes of learning mathematics at home. So thank you for listening. See you again next time in our Mathematics 9 virtual classroom. Happy Teacher's Day to all the teachers. God bless you, learners. Stay safe and good day.
Dahil sa COVID-19 pandemic, napilitan tayong magbago ng paraan ng pamumuhay. Ika nga nila, New Normal. At maging sa edukasyon, kailangan na nating sumulong patungo sa New Normal. Ang pamahalaang lungsod ng Venezuela ay gumawa ng hakbang upang matiyak ang tuloy-tuloy na pagkatuto ng bawat kabataang Venezuelano. Sa pakikipagtulungan sa Department of Education o DepEd Venezuela, ilulunsad na natin sa parating na school year ang Venezuela Live. Ang Venezuela Live ay isang online streaming school kung saan maaaring magpatuloy ang klase ng mga mag-aaral kahit sila ay nasa kanilang mga tahanan. Paano nga ba ang magiging sistema ng Venezuela Live? Enrollment. Sa buong buwan ng Hunyo hanggang sa ika-15 ng Hulyo 2020 ay isinagawa ang K-12 enrollment sa lahat ng pampublikong paaralan sa Valenzuela City. Nagpatupad ang DepEd Valenzuela ng mga sistema ng enrollment kung saan hindi na kailangan lumabas ng tahanan ang mga estudyante. Learning Pockets. Gumawa ang DepEd Valenzuela ng mga learning materials tulad ng modules, worksheets, at study guides na naaayon sa most essential learning competencies. Ipapamahagi ang mga ito sa bawat mag-aaral sa iba't ibang paraan. Internet Connectivity. Humigit kumulang 130,000 ang enrollees sa elementary at high school sa Valenzuela City para sa school year 2020 to 2021. At ayon sa isinagawang survey ng DepEd Valenzuela, tinatayang 22,000 sa mga ito ang walang smartphone. At upang tulungan ang ating mga mag-aaral na nangangailangan at mapatutunayang walang smartphone, ang pamahalaang lungsod ng Valenzuela ay magpapahiram sa kanila ng mga gadget. Ang target beneficiary nito ay ang mga kapwa natin Valenzuelano na nabibilang sa poorest of the poor. Ang magulang o guardian naman na ang bahalang sumagot sa wifi o mobile data imbis na gumastos para sa baon at uniforme. Streaming School. Kung dati ay harapan ng diskusyon ng guro at mga estudyante sa loob ng classroom, ngayon ay tablet o smartphone na lang ang magiging kaharap nila. Lahat ng leksyon ay ituturo ng mga guro sa pamamagitan ng video streaming na maaaring mapanood ng kanilang mga estudyante sa kanilang mga gadgets. Ang Valenzuela School of Mathematics and Science o VALMASAI ay gagamitin bilang off-site classroom. Dito isasagawa ng mga guro ang live streaming ng mga klase. Mayroong mga IT technician at moderator na magiging kaagapin ng mga guro para sa mas epektibong online classes. Magkakaroon din ng virtual communities kung saan pwedeng magsagawa ng follow-up discussions ang mga guro at estudyante gamit ang free online platforms na hindi nangangailangan ng mobile data subscription. Maaari rin ditong gumawa ng group chats ang mga magulang kung saan pwede silang mag-usap at magtulungan upang maging mas epektibo ang pag-aaral ng kanilang mga anak. Assessment. Ang mga estudyante ay kailangang bumuo ng portfolio kung saan ilalagay ang lahat ng ginawa nilang pagsasanay na susuri sa kanilang mga natutunan. Ang portfolio na ito ang pagbabasihan ng kanilang magiging grado. Ang pagbibigay ng marka o grado ay ibabatay sa panuntunan na ilalabas ng DepEd. Ngayong new normal, walang kabataang Venezuelano ang maiiwan. Kaya tayo na Venezuela, magbalik eskwela na sa tulong ng Venezuela Live.